Welcome to Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host, Pete B. I'm here with my co host, Sam Jesse. We just did a long podcast last night, Sam, talking all about the basketball team. We're gonna leave a lot of the Mike Young team program stuff out of this episode because we covered it in detail.
I felt like I just woke up on this couch, Pete, and here I am. So, yeah, back-to-back nights. Podcasting is not for the weak. It is a very physically and mentally taxing side hustle if you ever want to get involved in it.
We had a big discussion, and I mean that in the sense of length of time that we were on the mics and amount of people, because there were 6 of us on the show, and it went well. I thought we could have been more critical of the coaching probably from this year. You always walk a fine line with that, but I think there was a good balance in there of excuse making and criticism throughout the full 90 minutes or so.
And I think if you're somebody who's like, they need to fire Mike Young, everything sucks, blow it up. I think you're going to find some points that you like. If you're the person who's like, Mike Young's a great coach, that was a terrible season, we move on, we're going to roll with it, you'll probably find some points in there as well. I think we did a good job of also towing the line between reason and excuse, which is a very, very fine line in sports, especially collegiate sports. So give it a listen no matter what side you're on, because quite frankly, it doesn't matter. He's the coach next year and they're making moves, and we'll see how this thing goes over the next, 5-6 months or so.
And that is a reason why you can't be so critical, because they're coming back. The staff is largely coming back. As for the women, before we get into the cheers and just the intro, they lost to Oregon in the NCAA tournament. Their season is over. But I would it's funny how they made the tournament. It's a little bit men's basketball, women's basketball. It's different metrics, all this kind of stuff in terms of what's successful. But I think Coach Duffy and the girls deserve a shout out, because I thought it was a successful season with a lot of fun stretches throughout.
Yeah, I think they had that stretch where they won 7 games in a row in ACC play. That was really good. This was a team where we're like, they'll be on the bubble. We'll see. I think they never were able to really punch above their weight, but at the same time, they took care of business kind of from the first week of the season to the last week of the season. Went 2-0 against UVA. That's a team that's in the Sweet 16, so always nice to go 2-0 against UVA. Yeah, things are looking up for that program. We'll see what they look like next year. I feel like women's basketball is one of the last pure program building sports left in college. And so I'm excited to see how they can kind of parlay the growth that they had from last year over year, to then this year over year.
Certainly. In this episode, we are going to talk about what's going on at spring practice. Empty the notebook, as it were. All the rumblings coming out of Blacksburg. We'll close the book on wrestling at the end, and we'll talk a little baseball and softball also a little bit later in the show. Sam, kick us off with the cheers.
My cheers is a cheers to celebrating what many believe is the best weekend in sports, the first and second round of March Madness. It's hard to argue. I have thoroughly enjoyed watching it. It is so much fun. The Sweet 16 matchups are really fun and they're really interesting. And I think the tournament is in great shape. Cinderella or no Cinderella, I don't care. Duke St. John's is going to be awesome. UConn, Michigan State, Iowa, and Nebraska. That rivalry being renewed in the Sweet 16 is awesome. Can't wait, dude. Cannot.
Cheers.
Wait. That wasn't a very good snap. I apologize.
I have to admit, I don't really miss having, 2-3 years ago when it was FAU and San Diego State in the Final Four. I don't really want that. Yeah, we all want some upsets. We want some Cinderellas, but you don't want too many either. You want the good matchups when you get to the second and third weekends.
That San Diego State team was like a 4 seed, right?
I think so.
They were pretty high. I will also say too, it's and this was brought up actually on the Cover 3 podcast, and they were like, you don't get the teams that are just grossly misseeded anymore because we have so many metrics. You don't have a Kentucky team that's like this Kentucky team from this year. If it was 10 years ago, they would have been like a 4 or a 5 seed. and gotten upset in the first round, and you would have been like, "Oh, what an upset." But you don't get that because we have the metrics to tell you that they're more like a 7 or 8 seed. And then kind of the vice versa, you have the good mid majors that we know are good teams that get a little bit of that extra bump. So I found that interesting
And you do have
perspective
to
on the
wonder
metrics.
if how weak the bubble this year is unique or if it will continue to just be weaker and weaker bubbles as we go forward. But especially if they expand the tournament, it's going to get weaker. But that 11 line, will the
Yeah.
quality continue to decline?
And it was crazy. Like the teams you had on that 11 line, you had the SMU in Miami, Ohio, but you had NC State, which is a massive basketball school and has won national titles and invests a ton into basketball. You have the largest athletic department in the country in Texas. You had on the you know other VCU is top 10 in wins over the last decade plus or something like that too. Towards that line, you had like St. Mary's, who's been in the tournament every year for like 20 years there. So it's like the teams that you're getting on that line, even if they make a run, they don't really fit Cinderella at this
No,
point.
no. It's a lot
So
of
it's
the
a weird
power
spot.
conferences have gotten so big that you've got, 80 some power conference teams. And
Yeah.
so you're going to be filling a lot of those at large spots with power conference teams rather than what were mid majors. Like UCF used to be a mid major. Now they are no
Now
longer
they're
a
a
mid
Big
major.
12 team. Yeah.
Right. All right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow Too Deep on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're looking for that basketball show, it is on the Sons of Saturday podcast feed, but on this YouTube channel. Please like the video, please. Spring games at 3 p.m. We talked a little bit about that at the end of our previous show, which was 2 weeks ago now. Details about our events and what we're going to be doing down there will be coming out, but the plan is to record a live show from the tailgate up on Chicken Hill. Talking to Dan from Tales of the Terrordome and Brian over at Boundary Corner, trying to get that organized, figure all the details out for that. It's going to be fun. We're going to be selling some merch, having some beers, and probably clowning around. It's going to be great. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts that I just put on Instagram, the Tech Till We Die. I got a whole box of them. I'm going to bring them down. I think, what we're not trying to make money off this so much as just spread the word about the show. Get some cool gear out there for people to enjoy.
Zero margin t-shirts. Yeah.
We're trying to break even here, Sam. That's what we're trying to do.
It's company motto.
You're right. Recruiting. We got a commitment in the 2027 class, the first in the 2027 class. Alexander Taylor, a defensive lineman from Baltimore, 6'2", 260, and that's a junior in high school. That's a big defensive lineman.
He's at St. Francis, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe the prominent power in the DMV, one of the powers of high school football. And I think of those guys like I would, Highland Springs High School for football or DeMatha for football, where you just want guys who have been a part of that program because they've been coached by people who know how to get guys ready to play in college. Like a player you're getting from those kind of schools is a little bit more ready to be a collegiate athlete, and that is such a big step up because if they get that and they can get on campus for spring ball, now all of a sudden you're building a lot of a guy who's ready to play his freshman year or redshirt freshman year. So for me, give me all of the guys from programs like that.
Yeah, and at 260 now, like I feel like that's a defensive tackle, but
That's a big dude.
that's a really
260
big,
at 260 at like 16 or 17 years old is big.
it's
Big,
crazy.
big.
And he's 6'2", and he could still be growing height-wise as well. So 87 on 247 is the rating. That's the in-house ranking. And that's a nice quality recruit. I mean, we're a far way out here. I know Sam doesn't always
Everybody gets an 87. You
love
get an
talking
87. You
this
get
so
an
early,
87.
but hey, it's the first one in the class. Got to talk about it.
We'll take
And
it.
recruiting on the whole is seemingly going very well. From all the stories, all the message boards, all the top fives that we're making. I swear Steve Wiltfong must be on James Franklin's payroll. The way every month he's works for On Threes, a recruiting specialist, analyst, whatever. Like every month, I feel like we're getting a Wiltfong feature on James Franklin's recruiting.
Yeah, we're gonna land some big fish here.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I'm grabbing. I don't know who they're gonna be. I don't know how many, but, like, Virginia Tech in this recruiting cycle is going to land some dudes that you are not used to Virginia Tech landing.
And some of those could be happening spring game weekend. That's obviously a huge recruiting weekend. Franklin's been on the thing about trying to fill the stadium, which I don't know if that'll come true, but with the amount of like time and effort he's putting into like talking about it, like we might get close. Like
If if the weather pans out, I think it'll be a really, really good crowd.
and I know of several people who haven't been to a spring game since they graduated. We're talking like 20 years here, Sam, that might be there with me and you. So like people are excited.
Yeah, people are pumped up.
Uh whispers. Yeah, okay. We're good with recruiting. Let's move to spring practice notes. Let's start with the injuries, just get this out of the way. Uh Ryan Castle has been down there reporting for us, and I'm going to do some of his notes in 1 second. But this is from Damien Sordelet. He has reported that these guys are out for the spring practices, completely out. JoJo
Mhm,
Krim, Garrett Witherington, John Patrick Oates, Logan Howland. That was one of the offensive linemen we brought over in the portal.
mhm.
Roseby Labintis, that's Purgatory. Messiah Mickens, the 4-star running back, and Marleon Jackson, who was that the Louisiana Tech wide receiver.
Louisiana Tech wide receiver, yes.
So you look at that list, you're a little disappointed that JoJo Krim's out because he's
Yeah,
a young, promising kid. But being a DB, it's not as like I'd rather have the offensive lineman here, right?
yeah. Yeah, that JoJo Krim sucks too because he was a guy we were so excited about and had injury issues during the season as well. So you're like, man, you gotta get I don't wanna use an example, but, like, the Caleb Farley thing, we know what you're capable of, but you gotta be on the field at some point, and that is another issue that we're starting to see with a few different of these young up and coming talented players that we're hoping take this step forward is like, okay, not only were you not on the field last year, but like, are you going to be full go this spring? Are you going to be full go fall camp? Like at some point, you do run out of eligibility still, Pete, believe it or not. So,
Well,
and I don't say that for JoJo Krim and necessarily. Like I'm sure he'll be fine and be a good player for Virginia Tech this fall. But some of those guys who were hurt in the season and didn't play and aren't getting full reps this spring are
yes, and
guys that I'm like, "Oh, that's a long time without competitive football."
that's the thing about the list I just showed you. Those 7 guys, those are the ones that are just out, but there's several other guys that are nicked up. Marcellus Hawkins, for example, he's limited. Now, in one of the videos Ryan had from the sideline, we saw him kind of working on the sideline and kind of hopping through the frame. So I think he's going to be fine. But there are other guys that are, not taking reps with the ones at their position or in the 2 deep because they are nicked up or because they're still getting over from something that happened in the season, as Sam said. The running back room in general is thin because Messiah Mickens
Mhm.
is out. And like I said, Marcellus Hawkins is
Yeah.
limited. But I would say, compared to some of the Fuente years of spring practice injury availability, like this isn't bad. Like this
No,
is not a big
no.
number.
And I think how many they're probably over 100 guys are practicing
Well,
this
and that's the
spring.
thing with the 105. Like when you take 7 out of it, like that's not, it's nothing.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bullet points that I had written down is I think this spring will test our running back depth. And, I'm totally fine if Marcellus Hawkins does not get a ton of run this spring at all. If
Yeah.
if he's on the side doing his thing and making sure he's healthy and keeping his body in check, we know what he can do on the field. We know he's a hard worker. We know this team loves him. I'm good to go. Give those carries to somebody else. Now, you would have loved those reps to go to your stud freshman Messiah Mickens, but life doesn't always work out that way.
Hey,
So it's
Jeff
going to
Overton is
test a lot.
practicing.
Jeff Overton is practicing, but do you want Jeff Overton taking like too much of a load? Like, I don't mean to load manage these guys,
Don't load manage them. They're 20.
but
Jeff is 20, maybe, probably 19. He can handle it.
I hope so,
I
man.
understand. I know. I know what you're saying, that you don't want to like overload. It's spring practice. They're young guys. We have like by the time the season rolls around, I think we'll be fine at running back. Right now, yes, the room is short because it's Tyler Mason, it's Bill Davis, and it's Jeff Overton. Essentially, those are the guys that are practicing
So
right now.
which running back pops in the spring game where we're like, "Oh, this guy, he could be a play," and then he doesn't play in the fall? Who's the guy?
Tyler Mason.
Tyler Mason? Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I
I've,
agree.
from some of the notes, like Tyler, he's still plugging away, man. And he was a prolific running back in high school from the stats. Like the stats that
Mhm.
he put up, I know it was at maybe like not the most competitive conference or division or whatever, but they were ridiculous. And so, the guy can play. So I talked about Ryan Castle being a practice, taking notes, taking videos. We had him on our show 2 episodes ago. He has 2 articles up on the website right now, sonsofsaturday.com. He says Thursday's practice was intense, competitive, and efficient. I'm quoting the article. Despite guys not being in full pads, it sounded like, Sam, they are like moving through this practice, like hustling through the whole thing, which may be a departure from the way it was being. That's kind of how I took it from how it was before.
Yeah, I mean, boots on the ground for when Pry first took over, and they had a lot of coaches who weren't as experienced. That was one of the bullet points and main takeaways that they brought away from it was it's a lot of walking and jogging. It's a lot of balls all over the ground. It's a lot of guys kind of chit-chatting in line waiting for drills. It didn't look structured or uniform and efficient. And I think that's something where when you bring in a more experienced staff, they're going to get the most out of that. And you don't have a lot of practice time with these guys really in the spring. There's a
Well,
very finite amount of hours.
you get 15 practices. The spring game counts as one of those. So
Mhm.
you only get 14 practices. And it does make sense, though, that James Franklin would have a practice where, like, not a single second is wasted.
Yeah.
Ryan put up in the one article, like, a video of Coach Franklin pushing the sled off the field so they could get the next drill started. Like, that is him to a T, right? So that is pretty good information there. It seemed to be a focus to get the guys. I mean, there's always more discipline. Like you want the guys to be more disciplined, but we had so many issues with penalties and turnovers last year. It's something Ryan remarked about that it certainly seems like they've got, referees at the practices calling guys for stuff. They're trying to get the ball out of the running back's hands as much as possible. Like they're trying to focus on eliminating mistakes. That's another thing that Ryan noted. One of the more tangible things that the 3 quarterbacks, Ethan Grunkemeyer, Bryce Baker, and Troy Hoon, split reps with the top group on Thursday. So that seems to be the top 3 quarterbacks.
Mhm.
Keldon Ryan may be the 4th guy there of that group because we had a position change of AJ Brand moving to wide receiver. So there are only 4 quarterbacks. And if you're not in the top 3, that means you're the last on the depth chart.
Yeah, that was the first bullet point that I had written down and kind of something that I wanted to ask you, kind of your vibes on is how long before Grunkemeyer is labeled QB1? And I asked that question not as like a joking matter that it's already done, but without the spring transfer portal window, you don't have to worry about that as a coach. Like you don't have to worry about naming a starter and having another guy bounce through the portal. Like they can bounce in other roundabout ways, but I don't think you're worried about it as much. And you clearly brought this guy over to be your quarterback 1. So do you try to label that leader early on, or do you do what we've seen? Fuente did this. He kind of just waited until the middle of fall camp to name his starter, even when we all knew kind of who the starter was going to be.
As much as I've followed James Franklin's career, I don't know the timeline of him naming new starters. Uh, I would expect that by the end of spring practice or before fall camp, Grunk will be officially announced as QB1. I don't think it'll linger like into fall camp. Maybe it'll go over the summer, but I feel like sooner than later we'll get that. Because to me, it's not really a question. I think both you and I believe Grunk will be the guy. As good as Bryce Baker might look in practice or some of these videos that we're seeing, and by all accounts, like he looks pretty solid. Ball really jumps out of his hand, and he's got a good physical skill set. It's going to be Grunk.
Mhm. Yeah, like why lose those 2 or 3 weeks of leadership The like, I know labels don't make leaders, or what's the line from Vikings? Titles don't make leaders. Shoot, I'm
I
butchering that
did
line.
watch
We'll
some
put
of
it
the
back out
Vikings.
there.
That
I
was a
think I
good
think
show.
the it's a great I'm rewatching, it's a great show. I believe the line is like, "You don't need titles to lead," or something like that, and I understand that, but at the same time, this is a program that has really struggled for the on-field vocal leader, especially from the offensive side of the ball, for quite a while.
Mhm.
And we don't know too much about Grunkemeyer as in that position because he came into a really weird spot at Penn State last year. But you're hoping that you can get that out of him, and that's why you brought him over to be the face of this program and to be QB1. So let's roll with it. Let's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you just go for it.
A little bit more on that in 1 second because we're going to cover the QBs more closely here. Position changes to get this out of the way. AJ Brandon White out. I want your commentary on this, but that just seems like that was inevitable. Like that was going to happen
Mhm, mhm.
eventually. I don't think he was going to be a quarterback at Virginia Tech, and he's a fantastic athlete. So getting him to a place where he can contribute is good. That's a good thing, and we want to keep him in the program.
Yep, absolutely. Get your athletes on the field any way you can. And I think that's a wide receiver room that, look, you're not particularly deep at. You have a lot of young guys who don't have a lot of experience on the field. I think you need to create a lot of competition in that room because you have Aiden Green, you have Queso Brown, who we'll talk about maybe a little bit after this point, but he's looking pretty good. And then who else do you have that you feel good about throwing out there? Like, who's your third wide receiver? And it's a lot of guys who you're like, that guy was kind of talented in high school, and that's it. And so I think bringing another athlete into there gives you options, pushes everybody else, and also gives your quarterback a good rep with somebody who has a lot of the top end speed and top end athleticism. Because from a timing aspect, that'll help a lot.
Other position changes. Knowledge Harrell has been moved to safety. Jamari DeLoach, this is not so much a change as just a I don't know what you'd call it, kind of a tweak. He's moving a nickel from just straight up corner, Jamari DeLoach. And then Cunningham, Montavious Cunningham, who's now in his third year at Virginia Tech, is playing tackle in practice. And Johnny Garrett has moved over to guard. I'm certainly not putting too much stock in because it's offensive linemen rotating in spring, but that is Cunningham's natural position. That's what he played before he transferred. That's the position that French said he will be a tackle when he comes to Tech. And lo and behold, when we get a real coaching staff in here, he's back at tackle.
Yeah, I find the offensive line situation incredibly fluid, and I don't expect that to be set. Here to use a Hokiism, set in stone until God, I would say like 2 weeks before kickoff against VMI, 3 weeks. I think that's going to be a lot of movement because
Yeah.
who, especially with Howland out for the spring, like who is Sharpied in right there? I don't know if many guys are.
Nobody should be sharpied in with the way the last few years at
Oh
offensive
no,
line has gone.
like yeah.
And we'll come back to that in a second. I want to start this kind of going through the position groups by asking Sam, with all the notes you've been kind of taking over the last week and previewing spring practice with Ryan a couple weeks ago, what position are you least concerned about right now? Notice how I phrase that. Not
Least
feeling the
concern.
best, least concern.
Quarterback. 100%. Uh, I I watched Grunkemeyer play. Everyone did in the Big Ten against one of the best defenses in the country in Indiana. Watched him against a Clemson defense that wasn't vintage but was still pretty good. Watched him play in a really tough situation mentally and stay really firm. And also, he didn't have a ton of weapons with him at Penn State. There wasn't a lot of just get the ball out to a star wide receiver and let him cook. He had to really work and lead that offense down the field. And I think he also played a lot better than his numbers because they were a big time run the ball inside the 10-yard line team last year. So his touchdown numbers and maybe a different offense, pretty impressive. And so I feel totally confident in him. And even if the worst happens and you bring in Baker, high ceiling guy.
High
So
ceiling guy,
I'm
talented,
cool with
very,
it.
very
Yeah.
talented Bryce Baker. And I cannot believe you took mine. I can't believe you took quarterback for least concern
It
because that's what I
was
was gonna say.
I thought it was the easiest answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've not only do you have a quarterback who produced at a power school at a very high level, like you said, in a tough situation, but he's got the continuity of his OC, his quarterback coach, and his head coach in reality all being with him still. And so he's not going to skip a beat in terms of his development. And Bryce Baker, you add, if you're going through the room, I mean, how much better do you think Bryce Baker is than Colin Schlee as a backup? I mean, I know it's very, very hard to say,
Yeah.
but
Can,
I feel better about Bryce Baker with this staff than I did Colin Schlee with the last staff.
well, can you run the same offense with your backup quarterback? That's so because Virginia Tech just has not been able to do that. Like Colin Schlee came in and performed admirably. Almost won, probably should have won them a game at Syracuse. And
Yeah, yeah.
but you had to run a different offense with him. And can you run the same things with Baker? Do you not have a drop off in abilities to make checks at the line and get guys in the right position? Do you not have a drop off in a guy who, hey, where Grunt can go through 4 progressions, Baker can only go through 2 of 3? If you don't have that drop off and you have the high ceiling talent he has, now you're looking at real depth in that room. And not a lot of programs around the country have true quarterback depth.
Yeah. I we don't really know anything about Baker. All we know is that he was a highly talented guy that Grunkenmeyer, sorry, Danny O'Brien knows very well,
Mhm.
from playing at the same high school and recruiting him before. And so I just feel really comfortable with him as a backup. And when you add in a quarterback in Grunk that has done it at the highest level against some really tough opponents. I'm not saying he, was a world beater. Like Grunk, like there's plenty of room for improvement, but he
Oh,
was
yeah.
a freshman thrown into an awful situation and he almost beat the national champs. Like came this close and a crazy catch away from beating the national champs. And so I feel really good about quarterback. It seems as if Troy Hoon has already grabbed the third spot away from Keldon Ryan. And I, I'm not trying to like throw any dirt on Keldon Ryan, but like I have not heard one really good thing about his play since he's gotten to Tech. And now it seems like he's being passed over by a true freshman who should be at senior year of high school.
Yeah, there's a few guys like that where I think in modern college football, after 2 years in a program, if you're not in the, 2 deep drink or really pushing for it, and I don't think it's gonna be there. Like, teams are not going to sit around and wait for year 4 and 5 for you to contribute on the field, and players certainly aren't either. And so when you have a guy who comes in as a decently touted freshman, but again, one of those Texas to VT guys and can't even really get to the like dress out during the game portion, it's you're probably looking at a guy who's going to move on. And
And
you
the
can say
flip
that
side of that,
not just for Keldon Ryan, but like any player who's in that
yeah, yeah.
position. Yeah.
The flip side of that is Hoon has looked really good for a true freshman who should be a senior in high school. Like he is
Yeah.
big, mature, physically, a lot of positive reviews coming out about him, according to Colby Crawford and others out there. All right, so I'll give mine in terms of the position I'm least concerned about, and this one might surprise you, although I thought quarterback might surprise you. Corner. I am
Okay.
not really concerned about corner, and I know our secondary was in bad shape last year,
Do.
but the amount of young talent is there, and then they went out and grabbed two what I believe could be starting corners in the portal. And what we've seen in spring practice and what we're hearing out of spring practice is that White and Chadwick, like those guys look really good on the outside. And IBM is back. He can fill the nickel role, but he can also play on the outside if you need him to. Thomas Williams got a ton of experience last year in a really tough situation. Didn't always go well, but he'll be older, season of more experience. Wosley, Josh Clark back from injury. You've got Deloach, who's going to play some nickel. JoJo Krim will be back healthy.
Loved what
There's a
we saw from
lot.
JoJo Krim. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of young talent at corner. And the only reason I have a little doubt, because I just think with that amount of young talent and those two guys, I really think those two guys from the portal are going to be starting players for us. That if we had a known commodity at the coach, because the corners coach is one of the coaches on the staff that I probably have the most reservations about in Nick Perry, because he coached at Arkansas last year. He was the DB coach. Arkansas might have had one of the worst secondaries in the country. And that could be for a lot of reasons, but Nick Perry was the coach. And so Nick Perry has a golden opportunity here to prove that he's a good CB coach, because he has got talent coming out of his ears.
It is very almost, Major League might not be the right movie reference, but like you have a coach who presided over one of the worst pass defenses in the country, coming over to coach players who were part of one of the worst pass defenses in the country. And you're like, I think it's going to go great. And so you look at Nick Perry's resume as a coach and you're like, this is a guy who should be a good defensive backs coach. And you look at the talent, the recruiting talent in Virginia Tech secondary and the depth they've been able to create, the two guys they brought over on the portal with a ton of experience. And you're like, should be a decent to good secondary. It should work. Unfortunately, what we've seen the last 2 years at Virginia Tech, and not necessarily anyone's fault, but you've seen a ton of injuries. You've seen a ton of targeting penalties. I mean, let's not forget 2 years ago, we couldn't keep our two starting safeties on the field because they kept getting targeting. And we have some questions at pass rusher as well, and those two go hand in hand. So I'm a little bit worried.
Which position in the back end do you feel better about, safety or corner?
God, I mean, I would probably say corner, because it's the devil it's the devil I don't know.
Because I chose corner because there's more dudes. Safety has some guys that I think I can trust in Flowers and Reddish. However, safety, that has been worse than corner the last 2 years. At Virginia Tech, and we've been relying on young guys, and then a new young guy, and so last year we bring in Flowers and a bunch of other safeties, and it still didn't work. And last year was a mess, and we know that.
Yeah, how much? This is me kind of talking to myself as well. Like how much of that was on running a weird scheme, and getting a bunch of
and injuries and having to move guys from corner to safety and vice versa. And it was a really bad situation. But 2 years ago, the safeties didn't seem to know how to play either. And it just, new coach, Anthony Midget's back there, a name we know and trust from years back at Tech and from being in the NFL.
Steelers defensive backs were not good last year either.
And I should say this also with regard to Nick Perry and Midget kind of comboing that area, is that Midget seems to be in charge of all of the DBs and but particularly the safeties is his position group.
There does seem to be a triumvirate on the defensive coaching
I'm not
staff.
sure of Midget's exact title, but he might have. I'm trying to think of who's the pass game coordinator on defense. It might be him. I've got the list here. I'll take a look as we kind of chat. But let's take a break to talk about Roback before we get to our most concerned, because those are some of the positions we feel okay about. And there are more, but those are the ones we're feeling the least concerned about. We'll get to some of the most concerned in 1 second. Make sure you're using code 2DEEPVT over at roback.com. Sam's got the hat there. He was rocking the sweatshirt last night, the hoodie. I had, or I guess I've got so many of the Rowback polos now. They're probably my favorite polos in terms of comfort. Like that, just the way they stretch and move when you're trying to play golf or tennis or drinking in a beer garden, they are really breathable on those hot days.
I'm gonna do a few of those things next weekend in Kiowa, South Carolina. I'll be rocking my Rowback.
They are fantastic polos, and they have the new Virginia Tech Hokies. So use code 2DVT over at Rowback. You guys can also hit up the link on the screen on YouTube, buymeacoffee.com/2deep. This is essentially a tip jar for the show to buy us a beer. Yes, the name of the site is Buy Me a Coffee, but we can buy any drink with that. So buy us a beer over at buymeacoffee.com/2deep. We appreciate you guys supporting the show. Your viewership is always enough. Sam, are you having a beer? You drinking?
I am having a beer. Much needed beer tonight, guys. I am drinking a new one, and I did this. There's a couple of really good, like smaller convenience grocery stores in our neighborhood, and not bodegas, but like grocery markets. And they have really awesome beer selection. So I'm picking some at random. I got a nice summery one, Beach Zombie from Kings County Brewers Collective here in Brooklyn, New York. It's a really cool can. It's got like a zombie with a floaty on it, and then like a very uh like quintessential beach scene with the water, a guy doing metal detecting, the Ferris wheel. It's awesome. And it is a hazy boy for a sour.
Oh,
It
that's
is
thick. Holy
the
crap.
color is like peach. It is thick. It's sour, but it's not like a gozo where it's like puckery sour. It's right on that line. And I do get like peach, orange, kind of even like a sherbet. It says with strawberry and guava, but those two flavors together mixed with the sour kind of give me like a sherbet taste. It's pretty good. It's a great summer drink. Um, I probably wouldn't have more than one of them at once. It would be a great drink to add in a flight. We say that a few times, like get a 6 ounce of this guy and mix it with some other stuff if you're at a brewery. And if you see it up here, again, I'm not sure how well they're distributed outside of the city or outside of the tri-state area, but it's a good one. The Beach Zombie Fruited Sour from Kings County Brewers Collective.
That sounds good, and it is on theme because I've got the skull here. You're drinking a zombie beer, and my can has a skull on it. This
Let's
is
go.
the Juicy Pale, the Grateful Dead Dogfish Head beer, which I think Billy has had and tweeted out there. I've put it on one feed or another over the last 6 or 7 months. This is a great beer, great summer beer, easy to drink, 5.3%, but you get that, you still get like a hazy, almost get like a session IPA taste. It's a juicy pale. So it's essentially a session IPA. 5.3, you can have a bunch of them. They go down so easy, but they still bring enough flavor. If you don't want to just be drinking, a Bud Light or a Miller Lite, this you'll still get full flavor, and it's just only slightly more alcohol. So you can still take a bunch down or not be super hungover the next day. The Juicy Pale Ale, Grateful Dead edition from Dogfish Head. This thing, really good beer. I highly recommend these things.
A cool like collector's can to keep if you're a deadhead too.
Oh yeah,
It's
for
a pretty
sure.
cool. It's a pretty cool can for you, those of you not watching on YouTube. This one's 4.5%, which is a little bit lower than our normal sweet spot. But if it's a hot day and you're at the beach, that 4.5% is going to feel more like 6.5%. So be careful.
Most concerned about. Do you want to go first again?
Yeah, I'll go first. Offensive line. And
Easy answer.
It's an easy answer. And I think do you know of a college program that's feeling great about their offensive line heading into next year? Like it's not many. And my issue with it is I don't know if we have the dudes on the roster, no matter the coach. I just don't know because it was so bad last year. And I look around the guys that they brought in the transfer portal and high school recruiting, and you're like, oh, okay, got a little something there. We're switching positions all over the place. We're going to run the ball more. We're going to run more heavy sets. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's for me, this is the position group that I think is, I'm not kidding, a game and a half difference in the win-loss column.
So the starting 5 in spring practice was Aiden Lynch, Leif Gannum, Kyle Altuner, Johnny Garrett, and Montavious Cunningham. Those are all guys that have played and played a lot at Virginia Tech. Well, Aiden Lynch, maybe not so much, but all guys that were here last year, and some of them are several years into their 10 years, not only Virginia Tech, but even further in college with Montavious Cunningham. And so that can be good and bad, right? Because it's been a bad unit,
Yeah.
but you're bringing them back. And so there is something about getting older and getting better. And Altuner was a young player last year and was one of our
He
best offensive
held
linemen.
his own. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like there should be progress in the middle. And then can you get a fully healthy Leif Gannum? Can you get a healthy Brody Meadows as one of the top reserves? Can you get a healthy Cunningham who missed so many games last year or was, a game time decision in a lot of games? And when he went out against certain teams, like we completely fell apart. So I don't think I'm as low on it as you are. I think year over year having the same offensive line coach will help tremendously. Bringing in a ton of offensive linemen that are young in the recruiting class and otherwise, and then grabbing Howland, who I know he's out for spring, but I don't think he's going to miss much time after that. I think he'll be all right. Jason Terry, was it Jason Terry or what was the guy's name? The other offensive lineman from Ohio State.
Yeah, I know
We
who
were
you're
talking
talking
about
about.
Jason
I mean,
Terry earlier in the chat. Now I'm all mixed
Howland
up.
is, I don't want to say sharpied in, but you're probably going to start him against VMI.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I mean, probably because Aiden Lynch, I don't think should be a starter this year. Like I know he had to play last year, but he was a true freshman, correct? Or maybe a redshirt. And
Yeah.
he wasn't, it was an
None of
issue.
them were good. None of them were good. I mean, Tomas Rimac was an NFL caliber player, and he didn't look. None of it looked good last year.
Justin Terry.
Justin Terry, yeah.
Justin
Jason
Bell.
Terry plays hoops.
Justin Terry, Justin Bell from Michigan State, who is a
Mhm.
very large man, according to the people who report on such. And then who was Logan Howland. So those were the portal offensive linemen. Then we brought a bunch of big freshmen in. And then you're returning a bunch of guys, getting a guy like Brody Meadows, who missed essentially the entire year last year back. And yeah, I think if you were to say that our starters are Cunningham, Garrett, Altuner, and Leith, and then someone other than Aiden Lynch, you could talk me into pretty decent progress up front.
There's going to be so much pressure on them because you don't have the big, strong, mobile quarterback. Like you have a pocket passer back there. You're going to want to run the ball probably 10% more of snaps than you did last year. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them, and you're asking them to step up a lot. Now, I think this is a good time to point out that Bill Connolly put out his returning production metric in Virginia Tech, number 4 in the country. Offensive line's a big reason why in returning production. Virginia Tech really highly ranked.
And I know people scoff at that. They hate it because I think 2 years ago we brought back and then we kind of fell on our face. This accounts for Grunk's production. This accounts for Luke Reynolds' production. It accounts for the linebacker from Penn State's production. So the transfers are included in this. And so you can say, oh, we're bringing back, this from a bunch of crap. It's like, well, there's a lot of talented guys that came over from Penn State and from, the recruiting class as well. So like it's, I guess the recruiting class doesn't matter, but the talent on the roster is different overall. And that's what Bill Connolly is measuring. Like, and it is high. And I think you'd rather be high than low.
And I think there's a great opportunity for one of these young offensive linemen that we brought in to find their way into the rotation.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I think we said it a few episodes ago. I forget when, but it does feel like we're a rolled ankle away from a true freshman starting on the offensive line.
but that's remember when we had Ryan on and I talked about how heavy the offensive line was and that we had 11 guys that were 310 pounds or more?
Mhm.
Well, when they updated the weights, Sam, that number went from 11 to 15 gentlemen that are 310 pounds or more on the offensive line. The most we've ever had in school history was 12. We currently have 15 super heavy dudes. Now, I know that that can limit your mobility. Like, I don't expect Tyrell Simpson to be getting a ton of action this year. Guy needs to get lighter and more in shape. But the bones are there in the room. The size, like you need to have the size in order to scale it down. So I think from that aspect, I just feel like, can I get some big bodies out there that can push some people around? We're gonna have that. And we
Mhm.
haven't always had that.
Let's hope so, dude, because I think I think spring like, that's maybe the one area where spring game will be somewhat telling,
Yeah. Yeah.
is the battle up front, because you're gonna need depth on the offensive and defensive lines.
Well, that brings me to my most concerned. And there's a couple different candidates, and O-line was there, but I'm gonna go with defensive end since you took offensive line. Not defensive tackle. I'm specifically talking about end. And maybe I shouldn't be as concerned about this because we did bring in Coach Chaos, but we're also losing JC Price, who was probably our most reliable position coach of the Brent Pry era.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
that needs to be said, and it is cause for concern when I don't know who's going to start at defensive end. Do you like I don't think anyone could handicap it with any reasonable like odds right now at who's going to start at our defensive end position. And so that has to go to immediate concern for me.
Yeah. And it's so important to helping out that defensive secondary as well.
Yeah.
And I love bringing in Coach Chaos with his track record. I don't know if he has the dudes that he had at Penn State and Texas A&M helping him out.
He definitely doesn't have what he had at Texas A&M this past year.
Yeah. And so you're like, okay, I know he can recruit. I know he can, once he gets the guys in the building, they can be really good. Does he have the guys in the building? And this is one where you are very, very reliant on, did they get what they wanted to get out of the transfer portal to feel good about it? If they did, we should be okay. If
Yeah.
not, you're going to be in some trouble because there's not a lot of holdover from that. I think honestly, like guys who were in orange maroon last year, I think our best pass rusher coming back is like Kamari Copeland playing a wide technique.
Yes,
Like,
it
not
is.
kidding.
Because
And
otherwise it's Asen
uh,
Stevens and Jason
yeah,
Abbey, and those are not, Asen still, kind of was young in his career, and Abbey wasn't really a pass rusher, so to speak, more of a run stopper.
I will say with Asen Stevens, that's interesting because he is a guy who I felt like forced himself onto the field with his play
He's got some
after a
flash.
position change.
Yeah.
And so I think that that speaks for a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I like Asen Stevens, and right now, like him and Jason Abbey are running with the ones. But I'm kind of wondering if that's by default, because they're back and they were here last year. But as you said, this is a throw talent at the problem position. Like that's what they did in the portal. No meaningful production is back. Like at defensive end, there is no meaningful production. It's a lot of names, some of which are very, very talented. We've been hearing some things about Hilson, who
Mhm.
was arguably the most talented kid that we brought in the portal. He supposedly hit one of the managers in a drill, like just played through the whistle, through the manager, and, and put the kid in the ground.
Love it.
I think Copeland was telling that story, but because we have Kamari Copeland, like defensive line overall, it's not a huge concern overall, but at end specifically, I don't know who's going to start. Is it going to
Yeah.
be Okunla, Adarica, Harris, Williams, Jennings? These are all talented kids, but they just got here.
Yeah. And I think Hilson and Malachi Jennings are the two guys that you are, or Malachi Williams, excuse
Malachi
me,
Williams,
from
yeah.
Malachi Williams from Penn State. Those are, I think, the two guys who you hope nailed the transfer. They look good in practice. You can put them out there on Saturdays. but that is a position where if you aren't getting production, then it's not worth it. Like, you can't be quite you can't put together like a Tim Settle season where you're like, okay, he doesn't have big numbers, but he's like clogging up the lane. He's taking up 2 blockers every time and stuff like that. Even though Tim Settle had very good numbers at Virginia
You
Tech.
can do that, Sam, if you've got great linebacker play, and that's a different issue.
That's a different issue. Yeah, like if you start every game at defensive end and you end the season with 2.5 sacks, like there's no being like, actually, he had kind of a good season.
And that's not gonna fly with Coach Chaos and Pry. Like that's not gonna be good enough. And we've had years where our leading sacker has like 5 sacks or
I mean,
4 sacks.
Take me back and hold me accountable, Pete. How hype were we on Antoine Power Island coming in from Florida? He's a guy who like did not start at Florida when he was playing there.
He started at the very end of Florida, but like that we didn't know that we were gonna get what we got out of APR.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were excited about him, but we didn't know what we were.
I think we were because if I'm thinking
like,
back,
what was your memory?
I was more excited that we got like the big time 757 recruit to come back to Virginia Tech. More so than it was like, oh, we're gonna get a guy who gets 14 sacks.
Oh, we did not expect what we got out of him.
Yeah.
No.
So you also never know at that position in some cases.
I think one of these kids is probably going to do really well. But because I have no clue who it is,
we'll take quote card.
I'm putting it as a concern. All right. And then just to close out defensive line, next to Copeland, it could be Laws, it could be Fall. Like I think Fall's running with the ones. And he's put on a little weight, so he's no longer playing any kind of Sam Seifkis hybrid defensive end, like you said before with Copeland. Like Copeland during the Cal game comes to mind.
It was incredible. That's his NFL film right there.
Yeah,
that's it.
But defensive tackle, I feel a little bit better about because we have Laws, because we have Fall, because we have Copeland. You know, like and Christian Evans, and there's some Gerard Johnson. There's some other guys in there that have at least been here for a year or more, and I think we'll be okay in the middle. But let's move to some of the positions we're in the middle about. Things that were like not so strongly, oh, it's going to be great or bad. Like, what do you think about wide receiver right now?
I go back to I feel really good about Aiden Green. I feel very good about Queso Brown. Who else? Because you're going to be running 3 wideouts pretty much every time. So who else you got? Is this where you pepper the tight ends?
Does it bode well that Luke Stewie is getting the most praise of
Luke Stewie?
Anyone else?
Don't you dare ever doubt.
I don't know why I'm laughing. It's just like we've got all these 4-star wide receivers, and Luke Stewie is the one that Fontel Mines is tweeting about, and the one that I'm seeing in articles.
He's good bloodline.
He does. He does have a good bloodline.
Dad was a Hokie. Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying here.
Like, yeah, it's not great, right? Because there are guys who have been in this program who were highly touted out of high school, and we thought were going to contribute. And it's like TikTok.
I'll say, Sam, we didn't even know if Stewie was going to play wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like he was recruited as an athlete. I thought he could end up as a DB or something. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. He's a true freshman. He's an early enrollee. And currently he's getting as much praise as anybody else after Aiden Green and Quayshawn Brown, which Quayshawn Brown, there was a quote from James Franklin. I think Ryan had the video where, let me see if I got it here. Franklin said he's been very pleased with him. He has a different level of speed and elite ball skills. And whether it's Chris Coleman or Colby or anyone that talks about this stuff, Quayshawn Brown has been coming up again and again. It feels like we hit on that portal edition.
Please don't be Dawan Lofton. Please don't be Dawan Lofton.
He's not. Oh. I don't think he could be Dawan. Yeah, Dawan Lofton. Or no, was it Dwayne Lofton?
I don't know. Exenor, transfer from Penn State. I believe he was like a hybrid wide receiver tight end kind of guy who is now full-time wide receiver. He's interesting because physically He looks, I believe he's a redshirt freshman. Did he redshirt last year?
Yeah, he was a 4-star. I think he's a redshirt freshman.
He looks different. He looks like a Penn State football player. And
yeah, he's built up.
Is that a guy who, like, just find a way to get him out there? Like, that's not his best contribution on Saturdays can't be getting off the bus. You find him a way to get freshman. Yeah.
He's listed as a redshirt freshman, 6'1", 218. That's
a big wide receiver.
That's a thick wide receiver, man.
And so it's like, can you get him some action? And then on the tight end room, like, is Luke Reynolds, is he more of a Ryan Mallett or is he more of a Bucky Hodges? Like, what kind of player are you getting out of him? How are you using him? Because if you're using Luke Reynolds and Benji Gosnell as more pass catching options than interior tight ends, I think that changes the complexity because I'm not putting so much effort on we need Brody Adams and we need Chance Wiggins to be very good.
Did you hear the story about him like ripping into Sherrod Koval? Like
about who?
Luke Reynolds apparently like made a play against Koval. I don't know if it was a touchdown or whatever. And then he like got in his face, talked a bunch of shit, like
love it.
Was fired up about something. And yeah, it's that you love that stuff. And Colby was saying something to the degree of like his route running is absolutely fantastic. He's so fast for a tight end. And it's him, Hairston, and Gosnell. Like those are the three. And like
Hairston too is totally proven. Looked really good last year. One of the few bright spots on that offense.
Benji can make a play. Like we know he can make a play. I feel good about those guys. And you got Harrison St. Germain and Henderson too, who are talented kids. So it's the tight end room, I think, is in a really good place. Early returns on Luke Reynolds seem like another hit in the portal. And so good. I'm so glad we got Brown and Reynolds because we needed receiving options. As far as like, just to close out the wide receiver point, Cam Sparks has gotten a little bit of love. There's been a couple notes about Cam Sparks. But the Keelan Adams thing, we're still waiting on Brody him and Chance Wiggins to break through. They're both like not full goes right now. And I feel like that's an ongoing trend. I want them to get fully healthy and contribute. But like, as you were saying earlier about Keldon Ryan, we were talking about now is the time. Like this, it has to happen now. Or
it has to be. Happen. Yes, it has to be now. And again, like the whole like best abilities availability type thing, I think is a little bit overplayed sometimes in guys' faces when it's not necessarily their choosing. But you have 4 or 5 years of eligibility in college. If you're spending 2 of them injured, and then the third season, you're like also not really full go. We're not totally practicing. We're not developing with our new quarterback.
It's
like, okay, now we're punting on that season. And it's like, by that time, we're going to bring in new guys.
Yeah.
Like by that time, we've brought in a guy, he's had 2 successful years and he's gone off to the pros. So the game is moving on. And there's so much talent with those 2 guys. And we just, it's unrealized talent in Orange and Maroon right now.
Because Cam Sparks or Snook Peterkin or Exenor, someone's going to come up here and they're going to grab that 3rd, 4th, 5th wide receiver spot. So we want those because we've heard good things. Like there have been stretches of spring practices and stuff where they're making tons of plays.
I also think too, coaches, from what I've gathered from coaches, not only at Virginia Tech, but if you listen to coaches across the country, wide receiver isn't the rarest of skill sets for football players. Like a lot of guys are fast and can catch a football. And so if you're not, unless you're like Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald or something, like a freak.
Yeah, there are elites.
Everybody else kind of gets into the same bucket, and it's more about availability, timing, how are you with your quarterback? Route running,
the ball.
Fundamental, like all of that stuff you have to work on and have years and years of experience building up in order to get from just a dude to really good. And so if you are really talented, but you're not developing those skills at all, even if you are a little bit faster and have a little bit higher catch radius than another guy, a coach is going to move on from you much quicker than they would if you were a defensive end or a corner or a
Mhm.
quarterback.
It seems that way because there's going to be another 6'1", 200-pound guy in the next recruiting class coming up
Mhm,
behind you. Linebacker Spencer and Chambers are the two starters on the inside. That's assumed at this point. Wiley, one of the transfers from Penn State, is probably the next guy in that group.
mhm.
And then there's a drop off. You got Santiago, Balance, Jones. I think that was the West Virginia guy, and
Yes.
Gabe Williams. They're playing maybe outside linebacker. But the inside guys of Spencer and Chambers, like we've seen them both flash. Chambers a young kid, but like built like a senior. I mean, he is ready to play. He was ready to play when he got here, and even though he's still in his freshman season, he is just cut up and going to be a hugely important player for us. So I feel good about those guys with Brent Pry as the coach there. He's taking a very hands-on approach. He's in his wheelhouse again. Are your concerns about linebacker lifting a bit?
Official statement from Sam Jesse on the 2D podcast. Not worried about linebacker.
Wow.
Not worried.
Wow.
Not
I
worried.
like it. Gabe Williams making some plays. He's up to 235.
I'd love to see it. It would be so freaking awesome if he was good.
I know. And I feel like, I mean, he was our highest recruit in the class 3 years ago.
Mhm.
He had the bad knee injury and the tragedy and all that, but the talent is there. And if he's putting on weight and making plays in practice, I'm not going to rule out like him being a starting outside linebacker here at Virginia Tech at some
And
point.
I don't know if there's 2 players on this team where I saw better film of them wearing orange and maroon than Noah Chambers and Caleb Spencer.
Not last year, you didn't.
So, those are 2 guys I feel pretty good about. And Brent Pry's been the big 4-3-4 is his defensive base. I'm I think we see some 4-2-5 stuff this year.
Well, you're going to see a lot of nickel.
Yeah,
You're
because they
going to see,
love
yeah,
IBM, and
they love
IBM is not a
IBM.
true corner, and it's like, do we either get out there a linebacker who we're like, about, or do we get out a team leader at nickel? I think you're gonna
IBM
get that
and
guy with
Wosley are the nickels, and they like Deloach too. I mean, Deloach is younger, but a highly talented kid. You don't have to play Gabe Williams or Jones as much. Like you
get
can
your
you can
best
play
guys
your
on the field.
nickels. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of options too, because you got Llama, you got Terry Wiggins, top recruit in this recruiting class. Starting to feel better about the linebacker prospects going
Mhm,
forward. I want to see Brent Pry back in his role, do it for a season before I get super comfortable there.
mhm.
But I
I
already feel better about it.
I kinda want so picture it with I know we're running up on we said an hour, and it's in an hour
I know.
3.
We're having fun. It's okay.
Close your eyes, and we're up, let's say we're up 28-3 on VMI at the middle of the 3rd quarter, early 3rd quarter, something like that, and somebody makes a mistake on defense, and Brent Pry loses his marbles on the sidelines. I really wanna see that.
Yeah, instead of the notebook, we
I don't wanna
actually get
see so full disclosure, some inside Sons of Saturday, Ryan, who's doing a freaking awesome job covering football, we've been kinda workshopping what to call his articles going forward this season and stuff, and we've landed on tech transcripts, which I think is awesome. I did think about prize notebook. And that
as a
was
reason not to use the notebook or
as just like a joke, like,
yeah, yeah.
but,
It is kind of a funny
we
joke.
landed on tech transcript because Ryan's a fan of alliteration.
Prize notebook would be like a good podcast name or something.
I feel like it's also would be a good, like, anon message board handle.
My favorite Sixers podcast, and there's really like one I've listened to many over the years, but the one I go back to, the name of the podcast is Rights to Ricky Sanchez, which was just like a trade from over a dozen years ago. We got the rights to Ricky Sanchez, and like that became the name of a pod, and it's such a good pod. It's such a good name. Prize Notebook. Someone out there start that podcast. In 20 years, I'll tune in. It'll be awesome. It'll be one of the best Virginia Tech podcasts out there.
Yeah. My favorite now Guardians podcast is the Selby is Godcast. Bill Selby, player for the then Cleveland Indians, who I think he was the first player to hit a homer off Mariano Rivera in a playoff game ever.
I remember the name.
And he was like a back of the lineup catcher. And the next game, somebody at the stadium had a sign in cardboard with black Sharpie and just said Selby is God. And that is now in Cleveland lore, and the podcast is Selby is Godcast. It's
Dude, some of those like fan groups in the stands at baseball games, like for a while at Phillies games, they were making fan groups for every player. Like it was in the old vet when you could get tickets for nothing. It started with Randy Wolf. They created the Wolf Pack, and every time he got a strikeout, they do like a dance and howl at the moon and all that stuff. But then every player started getting one. So when Chase Utley got called up, this was Chase Utley's rookie year. My friends were like, we're going to the vet. We're going to do the Chase Utley fan group. Like, that's going to be us. So we got a sheet or whatever it was, put Chase's place on it, and went, and like the dozen of us got on TV back when that was still kind of cool. And it was great. We're all shirtless, like swinging our shirts around our head, Chase's place. That's what that just made me think of. Selby is God.
Okay, random.
It is baseball opening day, so yes,
random tangent. Is the P on the Philadelphia Phillies hat for Philadelphia or for Phillies?
Sam, I've never thought about that before.
Okay, I'll let you sit with it. It's a big,
you know what I literally say this when I wear a Phillies hat and I meet someone new. I say P for Pete, so they remember my name.
Okay, so the P on the Phillies hat is for Pete.
It's for Pete, yes.
Okay, perfect. That answers that question.
That's why I like my Penn hat. That's why I like Phillies hats. I'm not going to buy a Pittsburgh Pirates hat, but like any hat I can get with a P on it. I like a Pepperdine hat, which I've had in the past. Like I like hats with a P on it. And I happen to live in a city that has a lot of them.
Yeah, this is a pretty good. Is that works out for you?
It works out well. All right, so we've talked about almost every position. Tight end, running back. We covered running back as well. Safety. I think we did it. There was a little bit of news on punt return. Quayshawn Brown could be our punt returner, which I think I'm all for. I think if any, because Takai Heath, Denmark, one of the transfers from Penn State, which I guess is another wide receiver name we could bring up. Those guys are rumored to be in the mix at punt return, but I think in a year like we're going to have next year, get Queso Brown on the field as much as possible.
Especially if you're not going to pass the ball to him a ton. Like you're not going to be a high passing offense. How do you get the ball in his hands? That's a way to do it.
Do you think, like, in terms of the running back room, just to circle back to one of the first positions we talked about, Marcellus Hawkins lead back. We both think that.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think, how many like carries is Bill Davis? Will he factor in per game? Because I feel like we're going to see largely Hawkins and Overton. But Bill Davis is a pretty solid running back. Will he get, I guess he's the insurance policy if we get injuries.
So last year, the third leading rusher in terms of number of, that's stupid because it's college. So the third leading rusher in terms of number of carries for Penn State last season was Quentin Martin, who had 20.
20 carries?
20.
Well, dude, they had the two studs. I mean,
they had Katron Allen, Nick Singleton.
Yeah.
Who combined for 333 carries, which is a lot. I think you'll get over 20. I don't know if it's much more than that, though.
Yeah. It'll be more than 20, but it just depends on injury. Like, that's really like Bill Davis is the second back if one of our top two goes down. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah. Well, and we also, because of Mickens not being available for spring, like we're not going to have a great read on him. in his role until right before kickoff. And so I think that is interesting as well because if he's the dude who you think he is, you got 4 games to burn that red shirt. And if you're up 5 touchdowns on VMI, there's absolutely zero reason that Jeff Overton and Marcellus Hawkins need to be on
True.
that field.
Yep.
You need to take their helmets and put them in the locker room, give them some pom-poms and let them go cheer for the team. And that's the time where you get Messiah Mickens like, "Here's 10 carries in a row, bud. Go for it."
Yeah. For sure. And and we need to learn Franklin's tendencies in those situations to have a better
And
idea of how that would unfold.
I don't think we're really gonna know that because well, I guess you watched more Penn State ball than I did. When they were beating Bowling Green 62 to nothing, was it because they kept guys in to get to 62 to nothing? Or did we
Franklin
call off
likes
the
to
dogs?
Franklin likes to play his guy. He calls off the dogs eventually, but he will keep guys in.
I
Like I
need
mean,
to
you saw 20 carries for the third running back, although he
yeah.
wasn't there the whole year. Last year's not a good example, I guess, for Franklin's tendencies.
There's a coach a few ye like 5 or 6 years ago, and his quote was, "We paid them to play 60 minutes." I forget what coach it
That's so
was,
good.
talking about a bye game against I believe it was an FCS team that they just dominated. I need to find who that coach was because it was not a coach at a big program. Might have been at a G5 program, but
Remember
check
when we
that.
talked about the weights 2 episodes ago and I said that Bill Davis was like 248 or whatever?
Mhm.
Either he lost a lot of weight or that was a mistake because but they were joking about it on some of the other shows that like he's down to 230 now, which is a lot more reasonable. It's still too heavy for being 5'9", but he is playing a bruising position. Is he 5'9" or 5'11"? I don't.
Dude,
I'll look it
5'9", 230 doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No. Well, Terrion Stewart
It is
wasn't far from that.
yeah, and how'd that work out for him?
Well, he was a good running back. He just
He was very good,
he
but
was
couldn't
injury
yeah.
prone last year.
I man,
Bill
I
Davis,
don't like
5'9", 230. Yes, that is listed.
that's
Dude, it
crazy.
was 5'9", 248 like a month ago.
You check the calibration on those scales, Pete.
Because I saw a picture of him. He didn't look 250. Like
No,
I
he
look.
doesn't look like he doesn't look like you don't look at him and be like, "Oh, he's heavy."
No, I mean
Doesn't look like that.
he looks like a very strong young man. I think. Are we good with spring practice? Do we cover it?
I think I'm good. I mean, Ryan's doing a great job. You can check out his articles on the website, sonsofsaturday.com. You can follow him on Twitter as well. He does some good videos there. And
It's RC Bruin underscore
55.
55. Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll also be putting those out. And on his articles, pretty much every question that gets asked to whether it be Franklin or Pry or a player or whoever, that clip will be on there as well. So there's a lot of information stuck in that article.
Yeah, he embeds a lot of videos in his stuff. So that's always fun. That's where I saw that Franklin sled video. Quickly on wrestling, the national championships happened. Moderately disappointing effort from Virginia Tech. Now, it's always tough because you're going up against the best of the best. You don't know how it's going to unfold. But good news was Aaron Seidel and Colin Guy finished on the podium, top 8, All-Americans for those 2 freshmen, which is pretty freaking cool. Aaron Seidel at 133, first of all, one of the most competitive weights in the entire competition. He took Jack Forrest to 3. Now, Jack Forrest is a freak of nature. Did you watch the match of Jack Forrest versus Aaron Seidel? Did you see
I
any
did
of it?
not. But his name is Jax Forrest, so I think I know what I'm getting into here.
I had talked myself into the idea that Seidel can beat this guy. Like Seidel, because he only lost by 1 when they came to Blacksburg, and Seidel got him with a couple things and almost beat him. So I'm like, okay, this time this is Seidel's thing. Jax Forrest hadn't gone into the second period in any of his matches leading up to the Seidel match. That's how dominant he had been. Seidel took him to 3. Now he got beat pretty good. Took him to 3. And like it was a crazy match. I mean, I swear Forrest is like Gumby, dude. Like the guy just he will bend in a direction and then flip back the other way. And he got our boy pretty good. But then Seidel comes back, goes up against Marcus Blaze from Penn State in the consolations,
Who
beats
is
Marcus
naming
Blaze.
these kids?
Marcus Blaze is a cool name for sure. And he beat him. And he got third place in the weight. And it's a very, very difficult weight. Seidel is a monster. I don't like the fact that like Jax is a freshman too. And so how do you avoid having this killer in your way for 4 years? Maybe we'll see Seidel come up and wait. I don't know. But regardless, the match against Blaze was really a thing of beauty. I retweeted a video on my Twitter feed that kind of recaps it from a wrestling expert and kind of goes through it. It's awesome. So check that out. Really, really good stuff. But then Colin Guy losing a little early and then coming back in the consolations to get fifth. Really good on him too. Eddie Ventresca, disappointing tournament for him. I'm sure he was very disappointed. He was the 2 seed and he didn't get All-American, so that kind of sucked. Other than that, Sonny Sasso, he was a 4 seed, got upset by number 29 early on, tried to fight back. It wasn't a good tournament from those guys. And ultimately, we finished 11th for the second year in a row. Let's see how we do when the Hitman is back, Ventresca's back, maybe Guy, Seidel. Like, we're going to have a shot at this thing. And Bo Bassett, of course. And so this was always not the year before the year. Let's hope next year is the year. I'm going to turn it over to Sam now. We got baseball. They took a tough one yesterday, dude.
Yeah, I'm one of those midweeks that, Virginia Tech played, or for those who know, they lost 9-4 to East Tennessee State. So they split the season series with the Buccaneers. They played that one in Johnson City. That's a good East Tennessee State team. One of those where Tech kind of had, I don't want to say they punted the game, but we weren't playing our best guys. We were pitching the back half of the bullpen, and they have some good offensive players, and they got a couple of big innings, and that was pretty much it. Twice in that game, Virginia Tech loaded the bases with no outs. They came away with 2 runs combined in those 2 innings. So there's the ball game right there.
Why would you not be playing your best guys? I know it's a midweek and it's not a power school, but like, what's the logic there? Or is it something you disagree with?
I don't necessarily agree with it. I understand it from a pitching perspective. Like, okay, we got another ACC series coming up. Let's not blow our bullpen arms or like a starter arm right here. Madden Clement, who is a veteran pitcher for Virginia Tech, he should be on his way back, and that will give them the 4th starter they need, because right now they only have 3 guys who are starting, and those are your weekend starters. So you're trying to piece together with a bullpen game in the midweek. And so that can be kind of challenging because you want to get some action for those younger players to see what you got. But if 1 or 2 of those guys gets peppered and you squander opportunities on offense, I think Tech flew out to the warning track like 6 times in this game. It was like they were 5 feet away from home runs time and time again, which sucks.
Not the Blacksburg Bombers. Blacksburg.
No, this
power.
I believe I believe opponents have hit about 14 more home runs in the Hokies so far this season.
Damn.
So we're not great right there.
Not hitting for power. Now we did win the Duke series, right?
Yes, won the Duke series. That's a tough, gritty Duke team. Won that series. We should have swept the series, to be honest with you. Made some dumb mistakes in the field in that Saturday game when Brett Renfro had a great start to that game. So you should have swept that series, but you get 2 out of 3. In terms of the ACC, you're not feeling too bad at 4-5 because you've played 2 of the best teams on the road in Georgia Tech and UVA. And in fact, currently Virginia Tech, number 3 nationally in strength of schedule.
Damn. Wow.
3.
That's nuts.
And barring one of the ACC teams that we have left on the schedule just not winning a game, Virginia Tech is almost guaranteed a top 10 strength of schedule.
That now, man.
Because the remaining strength of schedule is 36th in the country, I believe.
Now the problem that we'll have is that, well, we already have the problem because we lost too many games early.
You got to win the games.
We're losing the midweeks that we shouldn't be losing necessarily.
Yeah. You're running out of
ACC. The ACC series that are coming up are really challenging.
Yeah. So they'll host Stanford, and that's, I think, very similar to the Duke matchup where it won't be easy, but you feel like that's a series you can win if you get some good pitching performances. But you're running out of mulligans in the midweek, right? Because those are ones that will really hurt your metrics towards the end of the season. So, you feel fine. You're doing good in the ACC. You're going to be okay if you just avoid sweeps. Don't screw up in the midweek. That's one of the tougher midweeks they have left. I'll say that. So, I'm not worried about anything else in the non-conference for the rest of the season.
They need to get healthy. I feel like every time I watch a game or tune into a game, it's like someone hurt themselves in warm-ups or something.
Well, that's the good news. I think this team is finally healthy. So Clay Grady, starting shortstop, he should be back here pretty soon. He had a broken wrist, which sucks because you can't grit your way through a broken bone.
Can't do anything.
Like you can either hold a bat or you can't. He couldn't. I think so. He's getting his way back. Madden Clement is cleared to go. So that's another arm that you get back. They avoided injury with Ethan Grimm and with Brett Renfro. So there's two of your starting pitchers.
Well, that's huge.
Back. Yeah. So you feel good about those guys being back. Anderson French took a knock. It's got like a line drive to the shin in a game. He's back healthy. They feel good. So this is the healthiest that they've been all season heading into this series against Stanford. So I feel pretty confident that Tech will be at full strength against the Cardinal.
They need to get hot, man. They need to get hot for a stretch and sweep one of these series. Like they really need to.
They do. And I will tell people they are one swing away almost every single inning. There are not a lot of 3-up, 3-down innings with this lineup.
Yeah.
They are getting on base. They're drawing walks. They're getting hits. They just don't have power hitters. So they need to string together 3 or 4 singles. And that's been tough. That's tough to do for any baseball team.
They're going to explode on somebody. Like they're one of these games, like those LOBs, like they're going to bring them in and they're going to, and hopefully it happens in an ACC series. And
spring game weekend, they will host Pittsburgh. It's been a surprisingly good Pittsburgh team with a lot of runs scored. So could use the home field advantage for that one. If you're in town for the weekend, head over to English Field for a baseball game. We're going to need you that one. That's going to end up being a big series that we maybe didn't think was a big series heading into the season.
Well, they might have to compete in terms of the crowds with softball because softball's bringing in the people, baby.
Dude.
28-4 for the softball team. 6 wins in a row after losing 2 to Duke, which was a little disappointing, but 28-4 is it's really hard to be upset. They just swept NC State. They got BC this weekend. Paul Patera is putting together a stats article, correct?
Yes, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So it'll be 8 a.m. Thursday morning. If you're hearing this, it's probably already out there.
Yeah, I'm going to post this probably Thursday morning, like 6 or 7 a.m. So awesome. And Paul does a great job with the stats. We know from the QB episode that he did for Memory Lane. So I'm looking forward to that. We also have Thomas Desharoon's coverage on softball that has been.
But Thomas does baseball.
Oh, sorry.
Mike Turner does softball. And they both do a great job.
Yeah. I've been clicking on so many articles. I mix up the authors every now and again.
We have so much coming out.
Check out everything over at sonsofsaturday.com. The beat writing has been really good on the Diamond Sports, and Paul's going to add to it this week. So that about does it for Two Deep. I told Sam we're going to be under an hour, and here we are at 124, but I had a great time. I had a couple beers. Sam's been locked in that room for 48 hours.
Yeah, I know. They're not going to let me out. I lost my keys and everything. It's been This is going to be a really fun offseason. It's going to be a fun spring, dude. I'm
Yeah.
really excited. I'm excited for spring game.
We are, what is the date? 25th?
25th.
Dude, we're just a few weeks away from the spring game. I cannot wait. My
3
wife's
weeks.
coming. She's going to be running. I don't know if she'll be able to beat you or not, but she'll be running in the 3.2. And I think Rich and a couple other people will be down running in the thing. I did see on one of Colby's episodes as I was scrolling through them this past week, he's missing the spring game because he has a wedding. It's
He is
better
way
like
too young for that.
it's better than missing an actual game, I guess. But this spring game in particular, like I wouldn't want to miss.
I really hope they put on a show, because if they don't, it's going to be the kind of a punchline.
Well, we've had so many bad spring games. Like,
oh my God, the last two.
I can't imagine it will be worse. Like, we had literally like one play last year that was fun.
I'm telling you, I will say this in our pregame. I've said it before. If I was a coach, I would 1000% rig the spring game.
Make it a show.
Yes.
Yeah. And if anyone would do that, I feel like Franklin would do that.
Like WWE style scripted. Yeah.
Maybe do what Lane Kiffin would do and then come back one notch and do that. That's what I want our spring game to be. Anyway, make sure you subscribe Sons of Saturday on YouTube, Too Deep, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. Stay tuned for details about the spring game. There'll probably be, when that all comes out, probably be an article and some links and whatever, but we're trying to set something up that weekend on multiple fronts in addition to the live pod. So stay tuned. And until next time, go Hokies.